The same weekend I walked across the stage to collect my diploma. Summa cum laude, 4 years of overnight shifts at a gas station. My parents threw a party for 40 guests. Champagne, fairy lights, a custom cake with gold lettering. None of it was for me. It was my sister's engagement party. My chair in the auditorium stayed empty, and my mother's only text that night was, "Sorry, honey, Kendra needed us more. You understand." 7 years later, my mother saw my penthouse on Instagram, and suddenly, I was darling again. What she didn't know was that I'd been waiting, not for revenge, but for the truth to finally have a room big enough to stand in. When I showed up to that family dinner, I brought a manila envelope. What was inside changed everything, but not the way my mother planned. Before I go on, if this story resonates with you, hit like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with it. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I'm Bryn, I'm 29, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now let me take you back 7 years. To the day an empty chair in the front row told me everything I needed to know. I grew up in Cooperton, Georgia, the kind of town where everyone knows your last name before your first. The Myers family lived in a yellow ranch house on Pecan Lane. 4 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a refrigerator covered in Kendra's face. Kendra is 3 years older than me. Prom queen, homecoming court, captain of the dance team. Every Friday our mother, Donna, would post a new photo album on Facebook. My beautiful girl at the fall formal. My star shining bright. You'd think she only had one daughter. I wasn't invisible, I was just convenient. I worked the 11 to 7 shift at the Shell station on Route 9, so I wouldn't need to ask for textbook money. I carried a 4.0 through all 4 years of high school. When I got the letter from NC State, full academic scholarship, I ran into the kitchen waving it like a flag. My mother glanced up from her phone. "That's nice, honey. Can you tell Kendra dinner's ready?" I taped my honor roll certificate on the refrigerator that night, right next to Kendra's senior portrait. By morning, it was gone. I found it in the recycling bin under a cereal box. When I asked my mother about it, she didn't even look up. It cluttered the fridge, Bryn. There wasn't room. There were 11 photos of Kendra on that refrigerator. 11. I counted. My father, Gerald, was a mechanic at Dillard's auto shop. Good hands, quiet mouth. He loved us both. I believe that. But he loved peace more. And in our house, peace meant agreeing with Donna. I didn't know it then, but that refrigerator was a scale model of everything that would come after. May 2019. NC State commencement. The arena held 4,000 people, and I could hear every single one of them. Families screaming names, air horns, someone's grandmother blowing a whistle. The noise was enormous. And in the middle of it, row 7, seats 4 and 5, empty. I'd sent the invitation 2 months early, reminded my mother 3 times. The last time, she squeezed my hand over FaceTime and said, "We'll be there, of course. Wouldn't miss it." They missed it. I walked across that stage in a blue gown with a gold cord. Summa cum laude. The dean shook my hand and said, "Outstanding work, Ms. Myers." I smiled. I looked at row 7. Nothing. Afterward, families swarmed the lawn. Girls my age buried in hugs, fathers lifting diplomas over their heads for photos. I stood by the exit, holding mine in both hands like a tray. My phone buzzed. One text from Donna. "Sorry, honey. Kendra needed us more. The engagement party was today, and you know how she gets. You understand, right?" I read it twice. Then I walked to the parking lot, sat in my Civic, and placed the diploma in the trunk, next to my laundry bag. I didn't cry. Crying would have meant I was surprised. And I wasn't. Not really. I sat there for 20 minutes. The lot emptied. I didn't know where to drive. What I also didn't know, not for another 7 years, was that my father had been in that arena. He'd been sitting in the back row, 10 minutes before my name was called. But I'll get to that. 1 week later, I drove the 4 hours back to Cooperton, walked through the front door and found the living room still decorated. Silver balloons sagging in the corner, a half-eaten sheet cake on the counter that read, "Kendra and Travis Forever," in pink frosting. My graduation had been 7 days ago. The confetti from my sister's engagement party was still on the floor. "Mom, why didn't you come?" Donna was folding napkins at the kitchen table. She didn't look up. "Bryn, Don't make this about you again. Kendra's engagement was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So was my graduation. She paused, looked at me the way you'd look at a child asking for a second dessert. You'll have other achievements, honey. Kendra needed the spotlight that day. I stood there, holding my car keys so tight the metal bit into my palm. Kendra walked in from the hallway, left hand raised, showing the ring to no one in particular. She hugged Donna, grabbed a piece of cake and sat down. She didn't ask about my graduation. Not how it went, not what I wore, not what the dean said. She talked about centerpieces for 20 minutes. Gerald sat on the sofa the whole time, Sports Center on mute. He didn't say a word. I picked up my bag. I should head back. Nobody asked when I'd return. But as I reached the door, I caught something. Gerald's eyes, lifting from the TV for half a second. There was something in them. Guilt, maybe, or the shape of a sentence he couldn't say out loud. He looked away before I could be sure. I drove 4 hours to ask one question. I got my answer before anyone opened their mouth. I moved to Raleigh that summer and didn't look back. Rented a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet. Took an entry-level data analyst job at a logistics company. Ate rice and frozen vegetables 5 nights a week and told myself it was a lifestyle choice. It wasn't glamorous. But it was mine. 1 year after graduation, I was 23. My phone rang at 9 on a Tuesday night. Donna's voice, low and strained. Bryn, the mortgage payment went up. Your father's back is giving out. He can barely work full shifts. We might lose the house. I stared at my ceiling. That yellow ranch house on Pecan Lane. The porch where I learned to ride a bike. Gerald's workshop in the garage. How much do you need? $1,200 a month, just until we're back on our feet. $1,200, almost half my take-home pay at the time. I did the math in my head, then did it again, and agreed anyway. I set up an automatic transfer. The first one went through on October 15th. Every month after that, $1,200 left my account on the 15th. Like clockwork. Like rent for a house I didn't live in. Around 2 years ago, when I was 27, I met Marcus at a friend's housewarming party. He's a CPA, the kind of guy who reads bank statements the way other people read novels. Steady, direct. The first person who ever looked at my budget and said, Bryn, you're being too generous for your own good. I laughed it off. At the time, 6 years, $1,200 a month. I never once asked to see the mortgage statement. That was my biggest mistake. 3 years ago, the phone rang again. Same voice, same Tuesday night timing. Bryn, the car died. Your father needs a vehicle to get to the shop. I found a good deal. A used Chevy Equinox, $22,000. But my credit score won't qualify. I need you to co-sign. I held the phone away from my ear and stared at it. Mom, co-signing is a big commitment. It's a $22,000 loan, Bryn. I'll handle every single payment. Don't you trust your own mother? I thought about Gerald limping to the bus stop. I thought about the garage where he taught me how to change a tire when I was 12. I signed the papers the following week. For the first 2 years, Donna paid on time. Never missed a due date. I almost forgot the loan existed. Then, 6 months ago, I got a notice from the bank. Late payment. 14 days overdue. I texted Donna. Mom, the car payment was late. Is everything okay? Just a hiccup, honey. Don't worry about it. 2 months later, another notice. 19 days late. Mom, this is affecting my credit. Bryn, I said I'll handle it. You're making a big deal out of nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Marcus explained it to me one night over takeout. Every late payment hits your credit report. If your score drops below the threshold, it could trigger a review on your mortgage. My mortgage. The one on the penthouse I'd just closed on 6 months earlier. The biggest purchase of my life. Donna had my signature on a loan, and she was starting to use it like a leash. I sat at my kitchen counter one night and did what I do best. I ran the numbers. 72 monthly transfers at $1,200. That's $86,400. Sent to my parents over 6 years, for a mortgage. Then there was the cosign. $22,000 with my name on it, and a payment schedule that was starting to slip. My credit score had already dropped 11 points in 3 months. Marcus pulled up my mortgage agreement and pointed to a clause. If my credit fell below a certain threshold within the first 2 years of the loan, the lender could initiate a review. Not automatic foreclosure, but enough to trigger questions I didn't want to answer. I loved that penthouse, not because it cost $990,000, not because of the view from the 14th floor. I loved it because it was the first place I'd ever walked into and thought, I built this. No one gave it to me. No one co-signed for me. No one's name is on the deed but mine. And now it was at risk because my mother couldn't, or wouldn't, make a car payment on time. I noticed something else that week. Donna had unfollowed me on Facebook months ago, but she still followed my Instagram, the account I barely used. Until the penthouse photo. I leaned back in my chair and said it out loud, just to hear how it sounded. I've been their ATM for 6 years. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't have to. If I kept going, I'd lose the penthouse. I'd lose my credit. I'd lose everything I'd built with my own hands. But losing money wasn't what finally made me act. What happened next was 4 months before the dinner. The calls started coming twice a week. Kendra's going through a rough patch. Travis lost his job. Did I tell you that? Everything's so expensive now, Bryn. Each call followed the same rhythm. Donna would start soft, build to a request, and finish with a guilt trip wrapped in silk. Mom, I'm already sending $1,200 a month. I know, baby, but family helps family. What about Kendra helping herself? The line went quiet. When Donna spoke again, her voice had dropped 2 degrees. Don't be cruel. She's your sister. I'm not being cruel. I'm asking a question. You know, Bryn, your father could barely walk last winter, and here you are counting pennies from your fancy apartment. It's not a fancy, after everything we've done for you. I closed my eyes. There it was, the script. Every time I pushed back, Donna either cried or invoked Gerald's pain. If I asked why, she cried. If I asked how much, she gave a number. I started noticing the pattern. Gerald was never on these calls, not once. When I asked to speak to him, Donna would say, he's resting, or he's in the garage, always a reason. One Tuesday, I tried calling Gerald's cell directly. It went to voicemail. I left a message. He never called back. That was when I started to wonder, was Gerald choosing silence, or was the silence chosen for him? My mother had a rule I'd never put into words before. She controlled who talked to whom, when, and about what. Every conversation in the Myers family went through Donna first. I was starting to see the pattern, but I didn't see the full picture yet. Tax season. Marcus and I sat on the living room floor surrounded by W-2s, receipts, and a laptop showing my bank account. He scrolled through the transfers and frowned. Why are you still sending $1,200 a month to your parents? Mortgage help, you know that. Right, for a house in rural Georgia. He pulled up Zillow on his phone. What's their address? I told him. He typed it in, turned the screen toward me. The house on Pecan Lane. Estimated value, $185,000. Built 1996. Last sold, 1998. Marcus leaned forward. A house like that, bought in the late 90s in Cooperton, Georgia. What do you think the original mortgage was? I don't know. Maybe $120,000? On a 30-year fixed? The payment would have been under $800 a month, and that's before they've paid it down for 20-plus years. He set the phone on the coffee table. Bryn, you're sending more than their likely payment. I stared at the screen. The little yellow house, the porch, the mailbox Gerald repainted every spring. There's a chance, Marcus said carefully, that the house is already paid off. I didn't answer. Something was shifting inside my chest. Not anger yet, but the shape of it. Like seeing a crack in a wall you'd always assumed was solid. I'm not telling you what to think, Marcus said. I'm telling you what the numbers say. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed doing arithmetic. 25 years of payments on a $120,000 mortgage. Even without extra payments, the math was tight. Where was my money going? I called Donna on a Wednesday. Midday. I wanted her alert, not tired. Mom, I have a quick question. Sure, honey. What's the exact mortgage balance on the house? Silence. 3 full seconds. Why are you asking? I just want to know where my money's going. Her voice changed. Not loud. Donna never yelled. She cooled, like someone opening a window in January. Are you accusing me of something, after everything I've done for this family? I'm asking a question, Mom. I don't appreciate the tone, Bryn. I really don't. You sound like you've been talking to someone. A pause. Is this Marcus? Is he putting ideas in your head? This is me asking a simple question. You know what, Bryn? I've got a lot on my plate right now. Your sister's barely keeping it together, your father's health is a mess, and I might not even be able to make the car payment this month. My hands are full. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. She didn't answer my question. She answered a different one I hadn't asked. The car payment. My cosign. She dangled it like a warning flare. Mom? I have to go. Kendra's calling on the other line. Click. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands flat on my knees, breathing slow. She didn't give me a number. She didn't say the balance was 50,000 or 10,000 or anything at all. She pivoted to tears, then to blame, then to a threat, all in under 2 minutes. My mother had just used a car loan to keep me in line. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about helping family. This was leverage. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. Did you catch that? My mother never answered the mortgage question. She went straight to a threat about the car payment. Why do you think she reacted that hard to a simple number? Where do you think that money's been going for 6 years? Drop your predictions in the comments. I'm genuinely curious if you see what I didn't see for way too long. Hit like if you're still here with me. Alright, back to the story. Because what happened next changed everything. 3 months before the dinner. A Saturday morning. Marcus came into the kitchen holding his laptop like a serving tray. Sit down. I sat. He'd pulled up the public county records for Cooperton, Georgia. Property tax filings, deed transfers, lien history. All of it free, all of it online. With my permission, he'd searched the Myers household. He turned the screen toward me. The house on Pecan Lane. Mortgage status, satisfied. Payoff date, March 2019. No liens, no HELOC, no second mortgage. March 2019. I started sending money in October 2019. The house had been paid off for 7 months before my mother ever called me asking for help. Marcus printed the property deed record, slid it across the table. I looked at it the way you look at an X-ray when the doctor's face has already told you the news. $86,400. 6 years of transfers. For a mortgage that didn't exist. I didn't say anything. I stood up, put on my running shoes, and ran for 45 minutes through downtown Raleigh. I passed the coffee shop where Marcus had first told me I was too generous. I passed the park where I'd sat on a bench last Thanksgiving and called Gerald, only to get voicemail. I ran until my legs burned and my mind went quiet. When I came back, Marcus was still at the table. Same seat, same screen open. Whatever you decide, he said. I'm here. I poured a glass of water and drank it standing up. I know the money didn't go to the house, I said, but I don't know where it went. The answer came from someone I didn't expect, and it came with a phone call I almost didn't take. Uncle Frank is my father's older brother, 62, carpenter, hands like leather, voice like gravel. He's the kind of man who says 3 words when most people need 30. He'd stayed in touch with me after graduation. A text on my birthday, a call at Christmas. Never much, but always there. So when his name lit up my phone on a random Thursday afternoon, I picked up fast. Bryn, can we talk? Just you and me? Of course, Uncle Frank. He cleared his throat. Your mother's been telling the family you don't call, that you moved away and cut everyone off. She told your Aunt Ruth you refused to help when your daddy had that kidney stone last year. I blinked. Dad had a kidney stone? Last October. He was in the ER for 2 days. Nobody called me. That's what I figured. A long exhale. There's more. Donna came to me last month asking if I'd lend Kendra $15,000. I said no, asked why. She said Kendra's going through hard times. His voice tightened. I said, Donna, Bryn sends you money every month. She said that was for the mortgage, so I told her, Donna, I helped Gerald paint that house last summer. He told me himself, the mortgage is done. I stopped breathing. What did she say? Nothing. She hung up. The room tilted. My mother hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to the whole family. About the money, about my absence, about everything. I don't know all the details, Frank said quietly. But something's wrong, sweetheart. Be careful when you go home. He said one more thing before hanging up. But I wasn't ready to share that part yet. I spent the next 6 weeks doing what I do best. Organizing. First, the car loan. I contacted the bank and applied to refinance the Equinox loan into my name alone. My credit score, despite the late payments, was still strong enough to qualify solo. The refinance removed Donna as co-borrower. She'd still have the car, but the loan was mine now. She couldn't use it as a leash anymore. If she stopped paying, I'd handle it directly and repossess the vehicle if needed. Second, the timeline. I printed my bank statements going back 6 years. Every transfer to Donna, date, amount, reference note. Then I placed the property deed record next to them. One column, purpose as stated by Donna Myers, mortgage assistance. Other column, actual mortgage status, paid in full since March 2019. 2 pages, clean, no emotion, just numbers. Marcus looked it over and said, "This reads like an audit summary." Good. I slid the pages into a manila envelope, put it in my bag. Third, and this one I didn't plan. I was cleaning out my closet that weekend when I found a box of college things, notebooks, a parking pass, and at the bottom, the graduation invitation I'd mailed to my parents 7 years ago. Cream cardstock, gold lettering. I'd written on the inside, Row 7, seats 4 and 5, saved for you. I held it for a long time. Then I put it in the envelope with everything else. I wasn't building a case, I wasn't plotting a scene, I was simply gathering the truth and putting it in order. If no one ever asked, the envelope would sit in my closet forever. But I had a feeling someone was about to ask. 2 weeks before the dinner, a Sunday evening, I was standing on my balcony watching the sun drop behind the Raleigh skyline, pink and gold bleeding into the glass of the buildings downtown. I took a photo on impulse, 14 floors up, the city stretching out below, my coffee mug on the railing. I posted it on Instagram with one word, home. Friends commented. Coworkers sent heart emojis, normal stuff. 3 hours later, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Donna, Kendra, Aunt Ruth, Cousin Natalie, 2 aunts I hadn't spoken to in years. Is that your place? How much was that? When did this happen, Bryn? Girl, that view. And then a private message from Donna. I read it twice. Darling, we need to talk. We're waiting for you. Come home this weekend. Darling. My mother hadn't called me darling since I was 12 years old. Since before I became the daughter who could take care of herself. Since before Kendra became the son and I became background noise. Now, one photo of a penthouse, and suddenly I had a name again. I showed Marcus the message. He read it, set the phone down, and looked at me. What do you want to do? I already knew. I'd known since the moment I saw the property deed. I'll go. You think it's just dinner? No, I think it's a stage. I picked up the phone. But I've got my own script. I typed back. I'll be there Saturday. The manila envelope was in my bag. The refinance was done. The auto transfers had been canceled 3 days earlier. I agreed to go, not because I was naive. I agreed because the envelope was already packed. The Thursday before the dinner. I called Natalie, Uncle Frank's daughter, my closest cousin. She works at the county clerk's office in Cooperton. We'd always gotten along, even when I stopped coming home. Hey Nat, how's everyone? She hesitated. That half-second pause people make when they're deciding how honest to be. Bryn, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Your mom's been telling everyone you moved away and cut the family off, that you never call, that when your dad was in the hospital last year, she called you and you hung up on her. My jaw tightened. She never called me about Dad, Natalie. I didn't even know he was sick. Silence. She said you hung up. She lied. More silence. Then softly. I believe you. Some of us have been wondering. The story never quite made sense. You always seemed like the responsible one. I leaned against my kitchen counter and pressed my palm flat on the cold granite. This was the moment. Not the money, not the cosign, not even the empty chair at graduation. This. Donna hadn't just taken my money. She'd taken my name. She'd rewritten 7 years of history and cast me as the villain, the ungrateful daughter, the one who abandoned her sick father, and everyone at that dinner table on Saturday had been fed that version of me. "I'm glad you're coming Saturday," Natalie said. "Some of us have been worried about you." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the kind of anger that sits low in your ribs and doesn't make noise. Stealing my money was one thing. Stealing my name, that I could not let stand. Saturday was coming, and I was bringing a different story. Saturday. Marcus and I left Raleigh at 7 in the morning. 5.5 hours on I-85 South, then 2-lane roads through pine country until the Cooperton exit. I drove. Marcus kept his hand on my knee and didn't ask questions. The manila envelope sat in my shoulder bag on the back seat. When we turned onto Pecan Lane, I counted the cars. 8, 10, 14, lining both sides of the street, spilling onto the neighbor's lawn. "That's not a family dinner," Marcus said. No, it wasn't. I parked at the end of the block. Through the front window, I could see the living room. Packed. I recognized Aunt Ruth's silver hair, Uncle Dennis's truck in the driveway, Natalie's blue Camry, neighbors, people from church, at least 20 people inside. I looked at Marcus. He looked back. "They set a stage," he said. I grabbed my bag, felt the weight of the envelope through the leather, and stepped out of the car. The front door swung open before I reached the porch. Donna rushed out, arms wide, tears already glistening. "My baby's home! Everyone, Bryn is here!" She wrapped me in a hug that smelled like Estee Lauder and butter rolls. Behind her, people clapped. Actually clapped. Like I'd returned from war. Inside, a long dining table pulled from the kitchen into the living room. Casserole dishes, sweet tea in mason jars, and a handmade banner taped above the fireplace in green and gold letters. Family first. Gerald stood in the corner of the kitchen drying a glass. He didn't look at me. Kendra sat at the far end of the table beside Travis. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I sat down, bag on my lap. Dinner was loud and warm and felt almost real. Aunt Ruth passed cornbread. Uncle Dennis told a fishing story. Natalie caught my eye from across the table and gave a small nod. I barely ate. Then, between the cobbler and the coffee, Donna stood up. She tapped her glass with a fork. The room hushed. "I want to say something." She smiled at me the way a host smiles at a guest of honor. "Most of you know my Bryn moved to Raleigh years ago, built a wonderful career. And just recently, did y'all see that Instagram? She bought herself a beautiful penthouse." A few people murmured. Someone whistled. "I always knew she'd make it," Donna said. "She gets her drive from me." Marcus's hand found my knee under the table. He squeezed once, then the pivot. "And because family is everything to the Myers, Bryn has generously offered to help Kendra and Travis get back on their feet. They've had a hard year, Travis between jobs, the house situation, and Bryn has already said she wants to step up." I had not said that. I had never said that. Not in a text, not on a call, not in any universe. But the room didn't know that. They clapped. Kendra dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Travis nodded slowly, like a man receiving communion. Donna turned to me. That smile. That warm, practiced, airtight smile. "Honey, do you want to say a few words?" 23 faces turned toward me. The room was silent except for the tick of the kitchen clock and the hum of the refrigerator. The same refrigerator that once held 11 photos of Kendra and none of me. My mother had written my lines, but I brought my own script. Before I could speak, Kendra stood up. Her chair scraped the floor. Her mascara was already running, either real tears or a very early start. "I just want to say," she began, voice cracking, "this has been the hardest year of my life." She told the room about Travis losing his real estate job, about falling behind on the house payments, about lying awake wondering how she'd keep her 2 girls, Lily, 5, and June, 3, in the same school district. She didn't mention why Travis lost his job. She didn't mention the gambling. She didn't mention what I'd later learn about the DUI. Aunt Ruth reached across the table and squeezed Kendra's hand. "Oh, honey, that's terrible." Uncle Dennis looked at me. "Bryn, you gotta help your sister. That's what family does." Cousin Natalie said nothing. She watched. The room folded around me like a closing fist. Every pair of eyes carried the same expectation. 23 people who'd been told I was the absent daughter, the one who disappeared, and now here was my chance to prove I still had a heart. Donna placed her hand on my shoulder. Gentle, firm. The weight of it was precise. "You'll do the right thing, won't you, baby?" I looked around the table. Aunt Ruth, Uncle Dennis, the neighbors from church, Gerald, standing in the kitchen doorway, staring at the floor. Then I looked at Marcus. He was calm. His eyes said what his mouth didn't. "You've got everything you need." I stood up. Donna beamed. Kendra clutched her napkin. Travis straightened in his chair. They thought I was about to say, "Of course, anything for family." I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope. I opened the envelope slowly. No rush. I pulled out 2 sheets of paper and held them at my side. "Before I say anything, I want everyone in this room to know something." My voice was steady. I'd practiced this in the mirror. Not the words, just the breathing. For 6 years, I have been sending $1,200 every month to Mom and Dad. She told me it was for the mortgage on this house. I looked at Donna. She was still smiling, but it had frozen. "According to the public county records for Cooperton, Georgia, this house has been paid in full since March 2019. I handed the first page to Uncle Frank, who sat nearest to me. The property deed record. He put on his reading glasses, scanned it, and nodded once. "That's $86,400 over 6 years, I continued. "I don't know exactly where every dollar went, but I know, and now you know, that it did not go to this house." The room went still. The kind of still where you can hear someone swallow. Aunt Ruth turned to Donna. Uncle Dennis lowered his fork. The neighbor from church looked at her husband. Donna's smile vanished. "Bryn, this isn't the time." "You chose the time, Mom." My voice didn't waver. "You invited everyone here. You told them I offered to bankroll Kendra. That was a lie, so now they can hear the truth." I held up the second page, the timeline, dates, dollar amounts, stated purpose versus actual mortgage status, clean columns, no commentary. "I printed this for anyone who wants to see it. I'm not asking anyone to take sides, I'm asking you to look at the numbers." I set both pages on the table and sat down. Uncle Frank stood first, his chair pushed back hard enough to bump the wall. "Donna, is this true?" His voice was flat and heavy. "Gerald told me himself the mortgage was done. I asked you about it last month and you hung up on me." Gerald didn't move. His eyes stayed on the floor, but he didn't deny it. Aunt Ruth picked up the timeline sheet. "Read it slowly. Put it down." Looked at Donna the way you look at someone you just realized you don't know. "Donna, where did that girl's money go?" Donna's hands were trembling. This is a family matter. Bryn is airing dirty laundry in front of—" "You invited us, Aunt Donna." Natalie's voice cut clean across the room. "You invited us here to watch her say yes. You don't get to call it dirty laundry when she says no." 2 of the church neighbors exchanged a glance and quietly picked up their coats. Donna turned to Kendra, looking for support, a lifeline, anything. Kendra wouldn't meet her eyes. She was staring at the timeline on the table, lips pressed together, doing math she'd clearly never done before. Travis stood up without a word and walked out the front door. The screen banged shut behind him. Nobody stopped him. Nobody tried. Donna sank into her chair. For the first time in the entire story, she had no script, no pivot, no tears on cue. Uncle Frank picked up the property deed and held it where everyone could see. "You told the whole family this girl abandoned you. You told Ruth she hung up when Gerald was in the hospital." He shook his head. "Looks to me like it's been the other way around." Donna opened her mouth. Nothing came out. But I wasn't done. I know that last part was heavy. Honestly, standing in that living room, my hands were ice cold, but I wasn't shaking from fear. It was relief. For the first time in 7 years, the truth was in the room, and it wasn't just mine to carry. Here's my question for you. If you were in my shoes at that moment, would you let Uncle Frank keep going? Or would you stop here and walk out? I'd love to hear what you'd do. Drop it in the comments. And hit subscribe if you want to see how this ends, because even I didn't expect what came next. I reached into my bag one more time and pulled out a folded index card. Not a speech. 5 sentences I'd written at my kitchen counter the night before, with Marcus reading over my shoulder. I unfolded it and read. Starting today, the monthly transfers stop. They've already been cancelled. Donna flinched. I've refinanced the car loan into my name only. Mom, your name is no longer on the title. The payments are my responsibility now. Donna's mouth opened and closed. The leash she'd been holding, gone. I will not be funding anyone's lifestyle while being called the daughter who abandoned her family. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice settling in someone's sweet tea. If Kendra needs help, I'd suggest she look into the same options I used: scholarships, part-time jobs, and a budget. I looked up from the card. I looked at Donna, at Gerald, at Kendra, at the banner that said Family First. I love this family, but love doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. I folded the card, put it back in my pocket. Aunt Ruth nodded. Natalie wiped her eyes. Uncle Dennis, who 20 minutes ago had told me to help my sister, stared at his hands. Nobody argued. Nobody said I was wrong. And for the first time in my life, nobody told me I was making it about myself. Donna looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the floor. Then he did something he hadn't done all evening. He looked up. Not at Donna. At me. But I wasn't done yet, because Uncle Frank cleared his throat. There's something else, he said. And the room held its breath. Uncle Frank stood in the middle of the room with his hands in his pockets, looking at Gerald the way a brother looks at a brother he's about to stop protecting. 7 years ago, Frank said, your daddy drove to your graduation. I stopped breathing. I know because I lent him my truck. His car wouldn't start that morning, and he came to my house at 6 a.m. asking for the keys. He said, Frank, I'm not missing this. The room turned to Gerald. He was leaning against the kitchen doorframe, eyes closed. He drove 4 hours, Frank continued. Got there early. Sat in the back row. I know because he called me from the parking lot afterward and said he saw you walk across that stage. My chest cracked open. I could feel it. Something between grief and gratitude splitting me right down the center. Then Donna called him. Frank's voice hardened. Told him Kendra had fainted at the engagement party. Told him to come back immediately. He left. Frank looked at Donna. I found out 2 weeks later. Kendra never fainted. It was a lie to get him out of that auditorium. Gerald opened his eyes. Tears ran down both cheeks, catching in the stubble on his jaw. This was the most emotion I'd seen from my father in my entire adult life. Donna stood up. That's not... It is true, Donna. Gerald's voice broke the room like a stone through glass. Stop. 2 words. The first he'd spoken all night. And they were aimed not at me, but at her. I gripped the edge of the table. My father had been there. He'd watched me graduate, and my mother had pulled him away with a lie. I should have stayed, baby girl, Gerald whispered. I should have stayed. The room was still reeling, people whispering, Aunt Ruth pressing a napkin to her eyes, when Natalie stood up from the far end of the table. Since we're being honest tonight, she said, there's one more thing Aunt Donna didn't mention. The room pivoted. Natalie wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. She had the same steady energy as her father. 3 months ago, Travis Hadley was arrested for driving under the influence. He was processed through the county clerk's office. She paused. I handled the paperwork. Aunt Donna posted his bail that same night. The silence hit different this time. This wasn't about money or mortgages. This was about trust. Kendra turned to Donna, her face drained white. What? Travis had come back inside and was standing near the door. He went red from the collar up. Kendra stood. You were arrested? 3 months ago? Travis said nothing. Kendra spun toward Donna. You knew? You bailed him out and didn't tell me? Donna raised both hands. I was protecting this family. No, Donna. Uncle Frank's voice was granite. You were protecting an image. There's a difference. Donna collapsed back into her chair. The banner above her head, Family First, hung there like a caption no one believed anymore. For the first time in my memory, my mother didn't have a rebuttal. No tears, no deflection, no after everything I've done. Just silence, and a tablecloth she kept smoothing with both hands, over and over, like she could press the wrinkles out of the evening. I looked around that room, at the faces of people who had, until 15 minutes ago, believed I was the problem. Now they were looking at Donna, and she had nowhere left to turn. Things moved quickly after that. Uncle Frank put his hand on Gerald's shoulder. "Come on, brother, let's go get a coffee." Gerald hesitated, looked at Donna, then looked at me. Then he did something I'd never seen him do in 30 years of marriage. He chose someone other than Donna. He picked up his jacket and walked out the front door with Frank. The screen door closed softly behind them. No slam, just a click. But it echoed. Aunt Ruth came over and held both my hands. "We didn't know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. If I'd had any idea." Uncle Dennis stood behind her, arms crossed, shaking his head. "Donna told us you'd gone cold. I should have called you myself." Natalie hugged me at the door. "You did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now." It didn't, and it did, both at the same time. Kendra hadn't moved from her chair. She sat with her hands flat on the table, staring at the timeline sheet I'd left there. Her mascara was ruined, real this time. Not performance tears, processing tears. Travis was already gone. His truck pulled out of the driveway while Aunt Ruth was still talking. 3 church neighbors slipped out without a word. One of them, Mrs. Gentry, who'd known our family for 20 years, stopped beside me on the porch and said quietly, "You did the right thing, hun." Inside, Donna sat alone at the head of the table. The cobbler was cold. The sweet tea had gone watery. The banner above her read, "Family First" in handmade letters, and she sat beneath it like a queen in an empty court. Nobody was clapping anymore. Sunday morning, Marcus and I were loading the car outside Uncle Frank's house, where we'd spent the night. The sun was barely up. The air smelled like red clay and pine. Gerald appeared at the end of the driveway. No truck. He'd walked from Frank's kitchen, coffee in hand, wearing the same flannel from last night. He sat down on the porch step. I sat beside him. Marcus went inside without being asked. We sat in silence for a full minute. Gerald held his cup with both hands like it was the only warm thing left in the world. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. I waited. "I was at your graduation. I saw you walk across that stage. You looked—" He swallowed. "You looked proud. And I left. I left because your mother said—" He stopped, shook his head. "No. I left because I was a coward." I didn't argue with him. He wasn't wrong. "I knew about the money," he said. "Not all of it, but enough. Donna would mention things. Bryn's helping out. Bryn's sending extra this month. I never asked where it went. I should have." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." He nodded. No excuses. No justification. Just a man sitting with the full weight of what he didn't do. I looked at the pine trees lining the street. At the mailbox he used to repaint every spring. "If you want to talk," I said, "call me on Tuesdays. Just you, not through Mom." He looked at me, eyes red, but steady. "Tuesdays. Your voice, not hers. That's where we start." He reached over and squeezed my hand once. Quick, rough, the way a man does when he doesn't trust himself to do more. We started there. I was closing the trunk when Kendra appeared at the end of the driveway. Eyes swollen, no makeup, hair pulled back in a way I hadn't seen since we were teenagers. She looked smaller than I remembered. "Did you know Mom bailed Travis out and didn't tell me?" Her voice was raw. "No, I found out the same time you did." 3 months. She shook her head. 3 months she kept that from me. In my own house. I leaned against the car and let her talk. "I didn't know the house was paid off either, Bryn. She told me you offered the money, that you wanted to help. She said it was your idea." "And you never asked me directly?" Kendra flinched, then nodded. "No, I didn't." "She told me you didn't need help. She told you I volunteered. She told the family I disappeared." I crossed my arms. Everyone got a different story. That's how she kept the whole thing running. Kendra stared at the ground for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were wet but focused. "What do I do now?" "That's not my question to answer, Kendra. But I'd start by looking at your own bank statements." She pressed her lips together, nodded. I opened the car door, paused. "I don't hate you. I need you to hear that. But I'm done carrying both of us." She didn't respond right away. Then quietly, I wouldn't blame you if you did. I got in the car. Marcus was already in the passenger seat pretending to check his phone. He's good at knowing when to disappear. I pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, Kendra was still standing there, arms wrapped around herself, watching me go. 2 weeks after the dinner, here's what changed. Donna deleted the family first banner photo from Facebook. Then she deleted her entire profile picture. For the first time in a decade, her page went dark. No posts, no albums, no carefully curated image of the perfect Southern family. Gerald called me on a Tuesday. 8 minutes. Mostly silence. He talked about a carburetor he rebuilt at the shop. I told him about a project at work. We didn't mention Donna. We didn't need to. The call itself was the point. The following Tuesday he called again. 12 minutes. He asked about Marcus. Kendra texted me 3 weeks later. I filed for divorce. No explanation needed. I'd later learn she found credit card statements Travis had hidden, online gambling losses totaling $47,000. The DUI was just the piece that broke through. Uncle Frank organized what he called a real family dinner. No banners, no speeches. Just Frank, Gerald, Natalie, Aunt Ruth, and me on a video call. We ate and talked and nobody performed. Donna texted me 3 times. I didn't block her, but I didn't respond. Her last message read, "I did what I thought was best for this family." I read it sitting on my balcony, Raleigh stretching out below me. Marcus brought coffee and sat in the other chair. "You going to reply?" "When she's ready to acknowledge, not explain." He nodded. 14 floors up, the city hummed. My mortgage was safe. My credit was climbing back. $1,200 a month was sitting in my account now, right where it belonged. My bank account gained $1,200 a month. But the real thing I got back was quieter than money. It was the sound of my own name, finally said by people who knew the truth. People ask me about the penthouse sometimes. They see the photo, the skyline, the balcony, the light. And they think that's the point of the story. It's not. I didn't buy the penthouse to prove anything to anyone. I bought it because after 7 years of overnight shifts, studio apartments, frozen vegetables, and automatic transfers to a house that didn't need my money, I wanted one thing that was entirely mine. A place where, when I turned the key, I knew no one else had paid for it. No one else's name was on the deed. No one else could take it away. The word I posted under that photo, home, wasn't a flex. It was the first time I'd used that word and meant it. Home wasn't Pecan Lane anymore. Home was a place I'd built myself, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, while my family looked the other way. Last week I was unpacking the last box from my closet. At the bottom, under a tangle of old chargers and college notebooks, I found the graduation invitation again. The cream cardstock, the gold lettering, and my handwriting on the inside. Row 7, seats 4 and 5, saved for you. I stood in the living room holding it, 14 floors of city light coming through the windows, and I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't angry. I was just done carrying it. I put the invitation on the bookshelf next to a photo of Marcus and me at a friend's wedding and a postcard from Uncle Frank. Not to remember the pain, to remember the distance I'd traveled. The penthouse is 14 floors up, but the journey that got me here started in a parking lot where I stood alone with a diploma and nowhere to go. So where does everything stand now? Gerald and I talk on Tuesdays. The calls are getting longer, 15 minutes last week. He told me he's been going to the diner on Main Street by himself, which might not sound like much, but for a man who spent 30 years orbiting Donna's schedule, it's a revolution. He's not perfect. He spent 7 years watching and saying nothing. But he's trying, and trying counts, as long as it's consistent. Kendra reached out a month after the dinner. One text. "I started therapy." I wrote back, "That's good." Short, not cold, just honest. I'm not ready to rebuild with Kendra yet. She accepted the money for years and never once asked where it came from. She's not the villain of this story, but she's not innocent either. We'll see. The door's not locked, but it's not open wide. Marcus and I are solid. He doesn't bring up the dinner unless I do. Some nights we sit on the balcony and say nothing. Those are my favorite evenings. And Donna, she hasn't reached out in a way that feels real. Her texts are still wrapped in justification. I was trying to keep this family together. You don't know the pressure I was under. None of it starts with I was wrong. I'm not waiting for a perfect apology. I know she may never give one. But the minimum is acknowledgement, not explanation, not deflection, not repackaging, just, I lied and it hurt you. Until that happens, the door stays where it is. Boundaries don't require the other person's approval, they only require yours. I learned that at 29, sitting in a living room full of people who finally heard the truth. Better late than empty. I'm not telling you this story so you'll hate my mother. I'm telling you because somewhere out there, someone is listening to this in their car, or on their headphones, or lying in bed at midnight, and they're sending money every month to someone who promised it was for one thing, but it's going somewhere else. They're getting calls that start with family helps family, and end with guilt. They're being told they're selfish for asking where their own paycheck goes. If that's you, here's what I want you to know. You are enough. You've always been enough. The person who can't see it, that's their blindness, not your failure. Loving your family doesn't mean you have to let them consume you. You can love someone and still say, no more. Those two things don't cancel each other out. They never did. And if the day comes when you draw a line and they call you ungrateful or selfish or cold, remember this. Selfish people rarely lose sleep worrying about being selfish. The fact that it keeps you up at night is proof you're not what they say. I used to think strength meant enduring, taking the hit and standing back up. And sure, there's a kind of strength in that, but there's another kind. The kind where you stop stepping into the ring altogether. That's where I am now. Not fighting, not running, just standing in a home I built with my own name on the door, drinking coffee on a balcony 14 floors above a city that doesn't know my story. The empty chair at my graduation used to be the saddest thing I owned. Now it's just a chapter. And the chapter has a different ending than the one my mother wrote for me. 7 years ago my mother texted me, "You understand, right?" For a long time I thought I did. I thought understanding meant accepting, absorbing, making room for other people's choices and calling it grace. I don't think that anymore. Today, if she asked again, I'd say, "Yes, Mom. I understand now. I understand that I deserved better, and I finally gave it to myself." My diploma hangs in my home office now, next to a photo of Marcus and me at his sister's cookout, a framed postcard from Uncle Frank that says, "Proud of you, kid," in his carpenter's handwriting, and my first marathon finisher's medal. Raleigh Half Marathon, 2 years ago. I cried at the finish line. Not because it hurt, because nobody had to carry me. On Tuesday nights, my phone rings. Gerald's name. I always pick up. Last week he said, "I told my buddy at the shop about your penthouse." He said, "Your girl did all that on her own?" And I said, "Yeah, she did." I pressed my lips together so he wouldn't hear me smile. That's enough for now. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a full reconciliation. Some things don't come back all the way, and I've made peace with that. But I'll tell you what I have. I have a home. I have a man who reads bank statements for fun and never once told me how to feel. I have a father who's learning to call. I have a bookshelf with a 7-year-old invitation on it and a view of the city I chose for myself. And I have my name back. Not the one Donna gave the family. The real one. The one I earned. If this story resonated with you, I'm glad. If you just listened for the drama, that's fine too. Either way, thank you for staying. Thank you for staying until the end. That means something to me. If you've ever had to set a boundary with someone you love, even when it cost you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. I read every single one. Hit like if this one made you think. And if you want more, there's another story waiting for you in the description below. Same kind of family drama, but the twist? You won't see it coming. I didn't either. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your name belongs to you. Nobody else gets to rewrite it. See you in the next one.